The Roman Father, from Virginia, by Thomas Babington, Lord Macaulay. From The World's Best Poetry, Volume 9, Tragedy and Humour, Part 1. Read for LibriVox.org by Leanne Yao as the narrator,
Craig Franklin as Virginius,
and Jason in Canada as Appius Claudius.
The Roman Father, from Virginia. Straightway Virginius led the maid a little space aside, to where the reeking shambles stood, piled up with horn and hide, close to yon low dark archway, where in a crimson flood leaps down to the great sewer the gurgling stream of blood. Hard by, a flesher on a block had laid his whittle down. Virginius caught the whittle up and hid it in his gown. And then his eyes grew very dim, and his throat began to swell, and in a hoarse, changed voice he spake,
"Farewell, sweet child, farewell. Oh, how I loved my darling, though stern I sometimes be. To thee, thou knowest I was not so, who could be so to thee? And how my darling loved me, how glad she was to hear my footstep on the threshold when I came back last year. And how she danced with pleasure to see my civic crown, and took my sword and hung it up, and brought me forth my gown. Now all those things are over. Yes, all thy pretty ways, thy needlework, thy prattle, thy snatches of old lays. And none will grieve when I go forth, or smile when I return, or watch beside the old man's bed, or weep upon his urn. The house that was the happiest within the Roman walls, the house that envied not the wealth of Capio's marble halls, now for the brightness of thy smile must have eternal gloom, and for the music of thy voice the silence of the tomb. The time is come, see how he points his eager hand this way. See how his eyes gloat on thy grief like a kite's upon the prey. With all his wit, he little deems that spurned, betrayed, bereft, thy father hath in his despair one fearful refuge left. He little deems that in this hand I clutch what still can save thy gentle youth from taunts and blows, the portion of the slave. Yea, and from nameless evil that passes taunt and blow, foul outrage which thou knowest not, which thou shalt never know. Then clasp me round the neck once more, and give me one more kiss. And now, mine own dear little girl, there is no way but this."
With that he lifted high the steel, and smote her in the side, and in her blood she sank to earth, and with one sob she died. Then, for a little moment, all people held their breath, and through the crowded forum was stillness as of death. And in another moment brake forth from one in all a cry, as if the Volscians were coming o'er the wall. Some with averted faces, shrieking, fled home amain. Some ran to call a leech, and some ran to lift up the slain. Some felt her lips and little wrist, if life might there be found, and some tore up their garments fast, and strove to stanch the wound. In vain they ran, and felt, and stanched, for never truer blow that good right arm had dealt in fight against a Volscian foe. When Appius Claudius saw that deed, he shuddered and sank down, and hid his face some little space with the corner of his gown, till with white lips and bloodshot eyes Virginius tottered nigh, and stood before the judgment seat, and held the knife on high.
"O dwellers in the nether gloom, avengers of the slain, by this dear blood I cry to you, do right between us twain. And even as Appius Claudius hath dealt by me and mine, deal you by Appius Claudius and all the Claudian line."
So spake the slayer of his child, and turned and went his way. But first he cast one haggard glance to where the body lay, and writhed, and groaned a fearful groan, and then with steadfast feet strode right across the market-place unto the sacred street. Then up sprang Appius Claudius.
Stop him, alive or dead! 10,000 pounds of copper to the man who brings his head.
He looked upon his clients, but none would work his will. He looked upon his lictors, but they trembled and stood still. And as Virginius through the press his way in silence cleft, ever the mighty multitude fell back to right and left. And he hath passed in safety unto his woeful home, and then they're taken horse to tell the camp what deeds are done in Rome. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.